was on American soil, in full military uniform. So why did it feel like she was being hunted? Face down, hands behind your back. The voice hit her like a hammer, loud, director, as if it came from inside her own skull. Sergeant Delilah Monroe didn't argue. She didn't shout, didn't even move fast. Not because she was resisting, but because her body simply couldn't. After 14 hours in gear, under the Kansas sun, her legs felt like concrete. Her back ached, and her mind was still trying to understand how this moment was even real. She was already on her knees. The cold tile floor of a Quick Trip gas station bit through her uniform pants. She hadn't come here to make a scene, just to grab a bottle of water and fill up her tank before heading home from base. Her boots left dusty marks from a long day on the training fields. Her uniform was weathered but neat. Her nameplate, Monroe. The American flag on her sleeve, unmistakable. The Army patch over her heart, clear as day. And yet, none of it mattered. The officer behind her didn't ask questions, didn't hesitate. He yanked her arms behind her back, tight, without a word. Cold metal cuffs locked around her wrists like it was routine. "Why am I being detained?" Delilah asked. Her voice was steady, quiet, measured, not angry, just controlled. No answer. His partner, a second officer, hovered nearby, one hand resting on her weapon. Her eyes scanned the small store as if danger could leap from the coffee machine. Like Delilah wasn't a soldier, but a threat. Behind the bulletproof glass, a teenage cashier stood frozen. He wasn't moving, just staring, phone in hand, jaw halfway open. Delilah lifted her head just enough to see her reflection in the mirrored ceiling panel. What she saw made her stomach turn. A black woman, in full military uniform, on the floor, face down, handcuffed, and all she had done was walk in for a bottle of water. But the shame, it didn't belong to her. Her cheeks flushed, not from guilt, but from something deeper, something burning. It was the kind of heat you feel when dignity is stripped in front of strangers, for no reason at all. Then, a voice sliced through the thick silence, from the other end of the store. "Wait, she's a soldier. What are you doing?" A woman in scrubs, maybe mid-40s, stepped out from behind an aisle, holding a soda cup. Her expression was sharp, incredulous. She looked from the officers to Delilah. "She literally has a uniform on. Are you serious right now?" The tension in the room shifted, slightly. The officer who had cuffed Delilah stiffened, his jaw clenched. "Ma'am, I need you to step back," he snapped, more focused on the woman in scrubs than the soldier he had on the floor. Delilah said nothing. She didn't flinch. She'd seen this happen to others, people who got frustrated, who raised their voices, who just wanted to be treated with basic human respect, and ended up on the news for all the wrong reasons. "Not today, not her. My military ID is in my front left pocket," she said, voice low and steady. "You can take it out yourself." The officer didn't budge, didn't even glance toward her pocket. He just stared at her like she'd spoken a language he didn't understand. For a moment, Delilah thought maybe he hadn't heard her, but he had. He just didn't care. She exhaled slowly. This was really happening, in broad daylight, in a quiet town, in the country she served, wearing the uniform she had earned. But what none of them in that store, not the cashier, not the customers, not even the officers, could have predicted, was what happened next. 2 hours earlier, Sergeant Monroe had been heading south on Interstate 70. The sun was low. Her boots were off, resting on the passenger seat. The window cracked just enough to let in the wind. A familiar Alicia Keys track played softly from her phone, a soundtrack she used to clear her head after long days. Her fingers tapped the steering wheel to the rhythm, and for the first time all week, she allowed herself to exhale. It was a good kind of tired, the kind you feel when you've done meaningful work, when you've checked gear, run drills, stood shoulder to shoulder with people you trust. That was her day at Fort Riley, 14 hours straight. She hadn't complained once. She never did. Now she just wanted two things: a cold bottle of water and a full tank of gas. Nothing more. So, When she spotted the glowing red and white sign of a Quick Trip off the Fairlawn Road exit, she turned off the highway and pulled in. The station looked clean, well lit, safe. She stepped out of her SUV, stretched, and slid her debit card into the gas pump. Prepaid only, she sighed. Chip error, again. No big deal. She shrugged, locked her car, and walked toward the store. Inside, the AC hit her like a wave. The place was quiet, no music. Just the soft hum of the slushy machine and the occasional beep of the microwave behind the counter. The cashier, an older white man with tired eyes and a gray mustache, didn't greet her. He didn't even nod, just stared. Delilah gave him a polite smile and headed for the cooler, grabbed a bottle of water, walked to the counter. "Pump 3 on this," she said, placing the bottle down. She pulled out her card. The man's eyes flicked down to her boots, her nameplate, her shoulder patch. "You active duty?" he asked, voice low like it was something to hide. "Yeah, Fort Riley." No reaction, just a quiet beep as he scanned the bottle. Her card declined. Again, chip issue. She rolled her eyes slightly. "I'll swipe it," she said. And that's when she felt it. That shift. The kind that's hard to describe but impossible to miss. The way people look at you when their curiosity turns to something else. Suspicion, discomfort, judgment. He was no longer just watching. He was evaluating. And within minutes, 2 officers would walk through that door, and nothing in her world would look the same again. "You said you're active duty?" the cashier asked again. Delilah gave a polite nod, though inside something tightened. She wasn't a fan of repeating herself, especially not like this, but she kept her voice steady. "Yes, sir. Logistics officer. Sergeant Monroe." Still, the man just looked at her, nodding slowly like he didn't quite believe her, like he was working out a puzzle he didn't think she could possibly fit into. She took her receipt, gave one last courteous nod, and turned to leave. What she didn't see, what she couldn't have known, was that as she stepped back into the golden Kansas sun, he disappeared into the back room, that he picked up a phone, and that a choice was made in that quiet moment that would explode into something much bigger. To Delilah, it was still just a stop for water and gas. But to the man behind the glass, it wasn't that simple. Something about her, something he couldn't name or maybe didn't want to name, made him uneasy. And that unease became a story, and that story became a phone call. The line rang twice. "Topeka Police Dispatch, what's your emergency?" The man's voice was calm, but there was strain behind it, like he was trying to make something sound more urgent than it actually was. "Yeah, this is Stan over at the Quick Trip on Fairlawn. I've got a woman here. Says she's in the military. Full camo, boots and all. Says she's active duty. But something don't feel right." "Okay, sir, is she threatening anyone?" Number: "No, she ain't said nothing. Just something's off. I've seen real soldiers come through here before. She don't look like the type." There it was. He didn't say the word, but everyone listening could hear what he meant. Dispatch asked for a description. He replied without hesitation, "Black woman. Early 30s maybe. Uniform looks legit, but you know how people get their hands on stuff nowadays." "Has she made any threats? Refused to pay? Caused a scene?" "No, she paid." Didn't argue, but still, you never know. It was a quiet day in Topeka. The call wasn't urgent, not even close to dangerous. But it was just enough. Vague, uncertain, suggestive. The kind of call that gets flagged just to check it out. 2 patrol cars were dispatched. Inside the gas station, Stan returned to the counter. He wiped it with a rag that was already dirty, then stood still, eyes fixed on the lot, watching. Delilah, unaware of everything unfolding behind her, had already begun pumping gas. Her cap rested on the dashboard. Her sleeves were rolled up just a little. The sun had started dipping behind the Quick Trip sign, casting long shadows across the lot. Stan squinted at her, still suspicious, still searching for something, anything, to justify the gut feeling he'd already turned into a story. A customer walked in, younger, wearing gym clothes, and caught Stan staring out the window like he was waiting for something to happen. "You good, man?" the customer asked casually. Stan shrugged. "We'll see." Outside, Delilah finished pumping her gas, placed the nozzle back into its holster, and twisted the gas cap closed. She opened her water, took a long sip, and leaned on the hood of her SUV. Her phone buzzed. Group text. Her squad back at Fort Riley was talking about grabbing dinner later. She smiled. Her body was sore, but her mood was light. She'd earned that tired. And then she heard it, the low, unmistakable hum of tires on pavement. Not fast, not loud, just intentional. 2 patrol cruisers entered the lot, one from each end. Lights flashing, no sirens. Both angled in sharply, blocked her in. Delilah's smile faded. Doors opened in unison. 2 officers stepped out, one male, one female. Their hands hovered near their belts, not drawn, but not casual either. The male officer called out first. "Ma'am, can you place your hands where we can see them?" Delilah blinked. "Excuse me?" "We got a call," the woman added, her voice firmer but more neutral. "We just need to ask you a few questions." Delilah raised her hands slowly, one still holding the water bottle. "What kind of questions?" "About your clothing," the male officer said. "Military gear. We need to confirm you're not impersonating." Delilah stood taller, her voice clear but calm. "I'm Sergeant Delilah Monroe, active duty, Fort Riley. I have ID in my front left pocket." The male officer stepped closer. "Keep your hands up." "I'm not reaching," Delilah replied evenly. From inside the store, Stan watched through the glass, arms crossed. Delilah noticed the officers glance at each other, not in alarm, but uncertainty. That moment of hesitation. They had expected someone loud, angry, confrontational. What they found was calm professionalism. And still, that hesitation quickly turned into escalation. "Turn around," the male officer said, his voice sharper. "I'm telling you, my ID is in my pocket. I'm not resisting." "Ma'am, turn around now." Delilah swallowed. Her hands still up, she spoke with controlled urgency. "I am not resisting. I am complying. But I want it stated clearly. I am an active duty soldier, and I have the right to identify myself before anyone puts their hands on me." The female officer shifted slightly. Her expression wasn't aggressive, more uncertain, like she was questioning whether this was the right call. But her partner had already made his decision. He stepped forward, grabbed Delilah's wrists, turned her around, harder than necessary. "Hey, easy," Delilah muttered, breath catching. "I haven't done anything wrong." "You'll have a chance to explain at the station," the male officer replied. "For what?" Delilah's voice cracked, not from fear, but from sheer disbelief. Her head turned toward the glass window of the Quick Trip. Inside, Stan stood still behind the counter, arms folded, watching like he was enjoying a rerun of some familiar drama. Outside, the handcuffs clicked. Tight, cold, unforgiving. Too tight? "Seriously?" A woman's voice cut through. It was the one in teal scrubs, mid-40s, sharp eyes, standing by her car with a fountain drink in one hand and car keys in the other. "She's in uniform. What the hell is wrong with y'all?" The officers didn't respond. Delilah, now forced onto her knees, closed her eyes and breathed deep. "I'd like to speak to your supervisor," she said calmly. "You'll speak to someone at the station," the male officer replied flatly. But now the female officer hesitated. She crouched slightly and reached toward Delilah's left chest pocket. "Let me at least check her ID." "No," her partner snapped. "She's cuffed. We'll sort it later." "Later?" Delilah's voice rose, only slightly, not out of panic but out of principle. "This is insane." And just like that, more eyes were on them. 2 teenagers by the vending machines had their phones up, recording. One of them whispered, "Get her name." And the cops' names, too. Delilah sat upright, spine straight, cuffs behind her. "I've served 2 tours overseas," she said aloud. Maybe to them, maybe to herself. "Led missions, carried gear into combat zones, but this is what gets me arrested? Getting gas?" The woman in scrubs shook her head and raised her voice. "This is what happens when people like you get scared of people like her." The male officer turned toward her. "Ma'am, if you're not involved—" "Oh, I'm involved," she fired back. I just watched you handcuff a soldier for standing next to a gas pump. Delilah didn't argue anymore. She focused on her breath, keeping it even. In combat, you brace for chaos. But this was quiet, casual humiliation, in broad daylight, in her own uniform, in her own country. One of the teens stepped forward. "You want me to call somebody for you?" he asked softly. Delilah nodded. "Yeah. My phone's on the front seat. Unlock codes 4379. Look for Captain Dorsey. It's under favorites." The kid nodded with a salute, then jogged toward her SUV. The officers didn't even stop him. They were too deep in it now, unsure of their footing, not sure how to back out. Because here's the thing. They didn't have a plan. They had a feeling. They had a call from a man who didn't like how she looked. And once they acted on that, they had to keep going, even when the logic started unraveling. But what they didn't know, couldn't have known, was what would happen when that phone call reached Fort Riley. When Captain Dorsey answered his phone and heard a nervous teenage voice say, "Sir, Sergeant Monroe's in handcuffs at a gas station," he didn't waste time asking what happened. He asked for the address, then he hung up. Within minutes, 3 military vehicles were racing down Interstate 70. No sirens, just lights and momentum. Captain Dorsey rode up front, focused, silent. Not angry, not loud, just moving with purpose. Back at the gas station, Delilah now sat cuffed on the floor inside, pressed against the soda machine. Her water bottle had rolled over and was slowly leaking onto the tile. No one had picked it up. The teens kept filming. The woman in scrubs hadn't left, and a man in a business suit who'd just come in for gum now stood frozen, staring at the scene with a stunned expression. The female officer finally knelt beside Delilah. Her hand went to the front pocket of the uniform and pulled out the military ID. She read it once, then again. Her face changed. "She's legit," she said quietly. Her partner didn't respond. His jaw tightened. He looked like a man standing in a hole he'd just realized he dug himself. Delilah didn't even look at him. She stared at the ceiling, shook her head slowly. "I told you that 15 minutes ago." "You don't gotta say another word, ma'am," the woman in scrubs muttered. "It's all on camera now." That's when the front door opened. 3 men entered, 2 in military police uniforms, 1 in plain clothes, but every inch of his presence spoke of command. Captain Dorsey, calm, measured, eyes sweeping the room like a field report. "Sergeant Monroe?" Delilah raised her head. "Sir." He didn't even blink. He turned to the officers. "You want to explain why one of my soldiers is on the floor of a gas station in handcuffs?" The silence was deafening. Even Stan stopped wiping the counter. Every camera in the room kept rolling, and for the first time that day, the officers had no words. His voice cut through the room like a blade, deep, calm, unshaken. "Sergeant Monroe," Captain Dorsey said, stepping forward. "What the hell is going on here?" Silence fell over the entire quick trip. No one moved. The male officer opened his mouth, ready with the usual justification, but Dorsey raised one finger, just one. "Don't explain it to me. Uncuff her, now." There was a long, heavy pause. "Sir, we received a call," the officer began. "You had a call," Dorsey cut in. "And you had a soldier, in uniform, who gave you ID, and you put her in cuffs anyway." Delilah's wrists were finally freed. She rubbed the raw skin where the cuffs had dug in, the marks already bright red, visible even under the flickering fluorescent lights. Dorsey turned to her, eyes steady. "You all right, Sergeant?" Delilah nodded slowly. "I will be. Thanks for coming, sir." He nodded back, then turned to the 2 officers, not shouting, not scolding, just final. "You'll be hearing from JAG, count on it." The older officer, his face red now, snapped, "Look, we were just doing our job." Dorsey didn't even blink. "No, you weren't," he said. "You weren't protecting anyone. You were playing judge, jury, and uniform inspector because some gas station clerk didn't like the look of a black soldier in camo." The silence that followed wasn't confusion. It was shame. No one answered. The 2 teenagers kept filming. Their live stream had already passed 12,000 viewers, and the video hadn't even made it to Twitter yet. Captain Dorsey scanned the room one last time. "Let's go, Sergeant." Delilah stood, straightened her back, didn't look back, but her face told the story. Not just exhaustion, not just anger, recognition. because this wasn't new. It was just the first time it happened while wearing the uniform. By the time Delilah got back to her SUV, the teenager who had called her CO had already uploaded the video to TikTok. The caption read, "She showed them her ID. They cuffed her anyway. This ain't right." The clip hit 100,000 views in under an hour. 10 minutes later, a local news reporter shared it on Twitter with the caption, "This is Sergeant Delilah Monroe, active duty, arrested in uniform at a gas station in Topeka because someone felt off." The woman in scrubs, Gloria Chambers, an RN from a local hospital, posted a photo of Delilah on her knees, cuffs cutting into her wrists. Her caption read, "This is what being black in America looks like, even in uniform." By 9 p.m., hashtags were trending. Sergeant Monroe, protect black women in uniform. She had it. Inside the gas station, the shift had changed. A younger cashier now stood behind the counter. Stan, the man who made the call, was gone. Word was he clocked out early, after someone from corporate called his personal phone. The officers, also gone. Their patrol cars quietly pulled away from the scene by a third unit. One of them was spotted back at the precinct, pacing the break room, while the other sat in his cruiser, scrolling through the video's comment section. Every line more brutal than the last. Fire them both. Imagine doing this to a white Marine. Sue the city, sue the department, sue the store. Across the street, in the local diner, the regulars were split. One older man sipped his coffee and muttered, "Well, we don't know the whole story." But the waitress, a short black woman named Ariel, shook her head. "We know enough," she said. She told them who she was, showed her ID. That should have been the end of it. Another customer added, "And if she'd raised her voice, moved too fast, that story ends very different." Back at her apartment, Delilah sat in silence, boots still on, wrists still aching. She hadn't even turned the lights on. Her phone was buzzing nonstop. Posts, mentions, messages. Her name, everywhere. Her face, frozen in frames she never asked for. She didn't cry, didn't post, didn't speak. Captain Dorsey had called earlier, told her that the higher-ups were handling it, told her he was proud, told her to rest, but rest doesn't come easy. Not when your name is trending, because you survived something you never should have had to go through in the first place. But now it wasn't just her story. The pressure was building. The internet wasn't quiet. And by morning, the people responsible weren't going to be able to hide behind anything. By 8 a.m., the mayor of Topeka had already issued a statement. It was cautious, carefully worded, full of phrases like "currently under review" and "we take these matters seriously." But the public wasn't buying it. Outside the Topeka Police Department, a protest had started forming. Not a massive crowd, yet, but 40 or 50 people stood quietly, holding signs. No chanting, no shouting, just tired eyes and steady focus. One sign read, "Would you cuff her if she looked like your daughter?" Another, "Real soldiers don't have to prove themselves. Racists do." Inside the precinct, things moved faster than usual. Internal Affairs opened a formal investigation before noon. The two officers involved, Officer Clay Benson and Officer Rhonda McNeely, were placed on administrative leave. The official language was soft, but the message was clear. The video was undeniable. Eyewitnesses had backed Delilah's account, and Fort Riley had submitted a formal complaint. That afternoon, Police Chief Leonard Garvey held a press conference. No podium, no prepared statement, just him, a row of reporters, and one mic. He looked tired, not just physically, but deeper, like someone carrying the weight of a department's failure. "I've reviewed the footage," he said. "I've spoken to Sergeant Monroe. I've spoken to her commanding officer, and I've heard from our community. What happened at that gas station should not have happened." Camera shutters clicked. No one interrupted. "I want to be clear," Garvey continued. "Wearing a uniform, military or not, should never be what earns someone fair treatment. But it says something about where we are as a society that even in uniform, Sergeant Monroe was seen as a threat first and a human second." He paused. "I apologize to her publicly and personally, and I promise accountability is coming." No one clapped. No one booed. People just listened, because this time, words weren't enough. The damage was already viral. By that evening, The video had millions of views. Dozens of think pieces were already live. Hundreds of TikTok stitches appeared from veterans of every race, all echoing the same message. If she can be cuffed for wearing the uniform, any of us can. The gas station clerk, Stan, had been quietly removed from his position. A corporate rep released a brief statement online. "We do not tolerate discrimination of any kind." But the internet dug deeper. Old social media posts from Stan began to surface, and they didn't help his case. And Delilah? She said nothing. No interviews, no posts, no press. She went back to work, like she always had. Head up, voice steady, sleeves rolled. On Monday morning, during unit formation, Captain Dorsey spoke just once. "She doesn't need to speak right now," he said. "The world's already listening." Delilah looked out at her unit. Black, white, brown, male, female, young, old. Soldiers, all of them. And she thought about what it meant to wear that uniform. In a country that could see it and still not see her, something had shifted. Not everything, not enough, but something. It took Delilah a full week before she said anything publicly. She didn't rush. She didn't owe the internet a statement. But one night, sitting at her small kitchen table, the same hands that had been zip-tied behind her back just days earlier opened her laptop. She clicked record. No uniform, no makeup, just a plain t-shirt, and the same calm voice she used in convoys, briefings, and heartbreakingly, while handcuffed on the ground. "I didn't want to make this video," she began, "but I think I have to." It was short, maybe 6 minutes. She walked people through what happened, the stop, the suspicion. The cuffs? She didn't ask for sympathy. She didn't sound angry. She just sounded tired. "I've served this country for 12 years. I've never been arrested. I've never had to prove I belonged. Until I wore a uniform in my own country at a gas station buying water." She paused. "I don't want applause. I don't want my name trending. I don't want to be a hashtag. I want people to stop assuming they know who someone is, based on how they look. Because if I'm a threat in uniform, what does that make me without it?" She never mentioned the officers. She didn't insult anyone. She didn't raise her voice. She just told the truth. "I wasn't physically hurt that day, but something did break. That little belief I held, that maybe, just maybe, the uniform I wear and the flag I salute would protect me from this kind of judgment. Turns out it doesn't. Not always." Her words hit harder than any press release or angry tweet. By morning, the video had 4 million views. Veterans across the country stitched it with their own experiences. A retired Marine said, "She kept her cool better than I would have." A Navy officer wrote, "This isn't just a black issue, it's an accountability issue." Teachers showed the video in classrooms. Local politicians quoted it in speeches. Even a few police officers shared it anonymously, with the caption, "We need to do better, and we know it." Delilah didn't do interviews. She didn't need to. She returned to her unit, returned to her job, still serving, still believing. Even in a country that didn't always believe in her, because that's who she was. Not a victim, not a symbol, just a soldier, a woman, a human being. But here's the truth. Delilah shouldn't have to wear a uniform to be respected. No one should. So ask yourself, if respect only comes with a uniform, was it ever really respect at all? If you believe in fairness, in dignity, in real accountability, don't just watch. Speak up, share her story, challenge assumptions. Because change doesn't start with policy. It starts with people. People like you.